Sometimes we want to do what we've always done, right? But we have to remember that what we've tried or what we did back in our 20s and early 30s stops working, right? Yeah. You've got to do something different. And it's not just about doing more, but it's really about doing what your body is going to respond to and kind of adjusting to those changes that your body is going through.
This is the podcast for women 35 and over who are ready to expand their wellness, their self-trust, and more importantly, how they show up in their lives. I'm Nikki Morris, the founder of Her Hive Collective, and everything we do around here is rooted in 3 phases. Flower, that means you are blooming. It's where you are going through the awareness process, the reflection process, and plenty of metacognition, where you are thinking about thinking. And then the worker bee phase, where you're creating habits and systems and really building your muscles to launch into the next phase, which is the queen bee, where you step into your sovereignty, your embodiment and leadership, and use everything from those other 2 phases to launch your ideas. So every episode, we're also going to weave in my 4 pillars, my 4 wellness pillars. The first one being building your personal board of health directors, which is really important. Number 2 is nourishing your body. And number 3 is moving your body. And finally, the one that I think is the foundation for everything else, prioritizing your pleasure, something we don't do enough as women. So if you follow me on social media, you know that my word for this year is expansion. And today's guest embodies that beautifully. Today, I'm joined by my personal physician, Dr. Kristamarie Collman, a double board certified physician who is known for her holistic, inside-out approach to wellness, skincare, and whole person care. She is the Glow Up Doctor, and she supports professional women in feeling confident, informed, and empowered in how they take care of themselves and advocate for themselves. She has been an extremely meaningful part of my personal journey and my personal board of health directors. And I'm so grateful that she's here with us on our first show. Dr. Collman, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction and for having me here. Yes, I'm excited for our conversation today.
Thank you so much. So one pillar that I've talked about often is building, like I said, that personal board of health directors. And as a primary care physician, as someone who helps women in particular work through their care, that's foundational to that. Why would you say it's important to have a trusted relationship with that primary caregiver? And why is it so important after like 35 especially?
Oh, that's a great question. You specifically mentioned after 35, and I'll say, that is really into our late 30s, early 40s is this transition decade, right? And primary care becomes less about these acute issues and more about pattern recognition and prevention, right? Or vice versa, prevention and pattern recognition. We know right now our current model as it stands is more reactive than preventative, and it's a lot of quick visits, this silo type of care, and it doesn't serve women that are in this phase of life. So 35 and up, oftentimes you're juggling a number of different things, right? Family, being caregivers for older parents, relationships. And now you start to also see these or feel these other changes in your body that may be happening too, right? So we've got hormones that may begin to fluctuate, stress loads starting to increase, sleep changes, weight changes, mood changes, all these things are shifting. Yeah. And so it's important to have a doctor or a healthcare provider who is on your team that can help you navigate all of those shifts that you're experiencing with your body as you experience the life changes as well too, right? Yeah. So we know primary care is where longitudinal trends are tracked, and it's important in this stage that women have someone who can see the whole picture, and that's how I practice really holistic type of care and not just isolated symptoms for them.
I love that, and I want to make sure that listeners know when I talk about the flower phase, I often talk about that phase as being a phase that you are in your younger years, right? Like certainly as a child, I would say all the way through college, but as you reach middle age, you oftentimes will go through changes, right? Whether it be changes in your marital status, changes in whether or not you are a parent, your parental status, changes in your career. There are all kinds of things that can happen in transitions that happen in that phase of life that can put you back into that flower phase that I talk about, right? Where there is metacognition happening. When you mentioned patterns and sort of like paying attention to that, when you notice as a woman that something feels off, and you want to start asking questions, what's something that you wish more women would think about or notice when they are asking about their own well-being?
So when they're asking about their own well-being, I wish more women would start to ask themselves, in a sense, what really has changed with myself over the past couple of months or the past few years, right? Really sit down and take a look at that. And the only way that you can do that is if you've had some clarity for yourself and you're tracking, right? You're kind of taking note of your symptoms, of your sleep, of these shifts that you're experiencing, right? So that's one of the things I wish more women would sit down and ask themselves, like, what has really changed for me over the past few months, over the past year, right? Because you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot from that.
Yeah, I think, and part of that is too self-trust, right? Like making sure that you trust that you're not seeing things or hearing things or feeling things that are not real. And sometimes as women, and especially women of color, in my experience and many women I know, they've sort of been told that they didn't think, or their intuition was off, right? Or their concerns were not really heard when they went to their care provider. So how would you suggest that we kind of flip that on its head to ensure that we're not necessarily going in there? Like, I know some people talk about like writing things down before they go into their doctor's appointments. Are there any tips that you can give us that would help us feel a little bit more firm in our advocacy for ourselves?
Definitely. I think, and you touched on partnership earlier, and I just wanted to just remind our the listeners that we're in essence working in a system that, again, was designed for men by men, right? And it doesn't, at times, they don't think that women's symptoms matter, right? And so that's why at times we will hear, oh, it's normal. It's okay. It's just aging. It's just stress. It's just life. You'll be okay. And we're offered reassurance instead of some concrete steps and treatment, right? So you want, again, someone who you trust, someone who is going to take your symptoms seriously, right? You want to have someone who's going to want to further help you instead of just providing reassurance or just dismissing, right? And then also have this shared decision making. So not just what your doctor thinks, but also what do you think, right? Are you in alignment with this plan, and what are going to be the next steps? And you want to make sure that you have all of that, whether it's, jotted down in a note on your phone or you're writing down, in your journal, what's going to be the next steps? When am I going to be able to follow up, and so forth?
Yeah, I love that. And thinking about, okay, so we have that awareness piece, right? We move it through that kind of awareness flower phase, moving into the worker bee phase, I'd like to call it, right? Where you are really building your systems and figuring out what works for you based on that data that we've collected in the flower phase, right? So when we think about nourishing our bodies and moving our bodies, which are my second and third pillars, I know you work with women like myself who are juggling a lot. What are some realistic, sustainable nourishment shifts that we can make as women in this period of our lives that can stick and really be impactful and make us feel better?
It's a good question, and sometimes we want to do what we've always done, right? But we have to remember that what we've tried or what we did back in our 20s and early 30s stops working, honestly, after, in midlife, right?
Yeah.
You've got to do something different. And it's not just about doing more, but it's really about doing what your body is going to respond to and kind of adjusting to those changes that your body is going through, right?
Yeah.
So, some sustainable tips, eating regularly, right? And so this is where your nutrition is going to come in, right? Really no skipping meals because you're doing detriment to your body, your metabolism, okay? Really trying to prioritize a couple of things with nutrition. Your protein, right? Strengthening our gut microbiome, which is so important. So getting your fiber in, fermented foods, healthy fats, eating the rainbow, because we want these anti-inflammatory and polyphenol properties to really help our system. And then you also mentioned movement, which, yes. So when I think about, I know it sounds like a lot, but I just try to remember NMS, right? So that's your nutrition, movement, and then sleep. But your movement, remembering that it's really not just about burning calories and getting skinny, but really being, getting strength and being strong. Okay. And I will share a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but we know that our muscle mass, really starts to peak in our 20s and 30s. And then after that, there's this decline in muscle mass, which is called sarcopenia. And it declines about 3 to 8% every 10 years after the age of 30. So we want to really try to prioritize strength training, preserving and building our muscle, which is going to help support, our metabolism, support our bone health, and really just help us, as we continue to age well.
Yes, I know. I'll share a personal moment that I had with Dr. Collman. I think
Okay.
my first appointment where I got my body fat, talking about composition.
Yes.
Y'all, I was 45 years old and my body fat was the same number. And I remember thinking that was a very salient, crystallizing moment for me where I'm like, there is no way in hell my body fat is the same as my age. And so that has been a complete moment where the shift was clear, right? I had to make changes in not just my nutrition, but in moving my body, because what I started to see was as I was losing weight, right, on my wellness journey, which was important because I was well over 218 pounds. I knew I had to lower my body weight, but I knew I wanted to make sure my body composition did not essentially stay the same, right? In terms of ratio, I wanted my muscle mass to increase while my fat decreased. And that continues to be something that I continue to play with, right? As I do weight training, that means my scale weight changes, but my muscle mass is really good. And so having a whole mindset shift around what those three numbers on a scale means has been a big game changer for me. So I credit you for that moment. I didn't like you, but I loved you in that moment. I was like, did you just tell me that?
It can be eye-opening, and I mean, body composition is so important. So important. We know, and again, elephant in the room, about 60 to 70% of women will experience weight gain in midlife, and it's a lot of shifts where we're storing our fat, right? So you mentioned seeing your visceral fat, being able to see visceral fat and the percentages there, but the visceral fat, again, this is the deep fat that is within they call it belly fat, right? And this is the fat that we can't pinch it or touch it, but it's the deep fat that wraps around our organs. It's inflammatory, right? It's not just sitting there chilling.
Yeah.
It's sending out these, inflammatory hormones, and it can be really detrimental to our health. So getting that visceral fat percentage down, right? Building muscle, which was your goal, that's key.
And I will say another little sidebar, when I use my home scale, right, to track my visceral fat, I noticed there is a correlation, however they're doing those numbers, between my visceral fat and my biometric age. That seems to be the most closely correlated number that I see, at least. When my visceral fat changes, I see changes in my biometric age. So It's something that I definitely pay close attention to. So that visceral fat is something else. So moving into, we talked about nourishing our body. We talked about moving our body. We talked about building our personal board of health directors and really holding them accountable, right? And holding ourselves accountable for having good communication with our personal board of health directors. Moving into the queen bee phase, which is my third phase in my organization, and really talking about pleasure, because I feel like that might be maybe the most misunderstood of the pillars in Her Hive Collective. How would you describe pleasure, whether it's self-care rituals, confidence, or just finding joy, in terms of how it's tied to and related to your overall wellness as a woman?
Yes. I mean, you mentioned pleasure, very much so tied to our overall health. I consider it protective in a sense to our long-term health, right? Women have often been told that they have to earn their rest. You've got to earn your fun and your pleasure. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that mindset starts to break down in midlife. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's so important for nervous system regulation and just for overall health. So pleasure to me can come in a number of different ways, right? And it's going to be different for everyone, right? It can be a self-care routine. It can be silence, spending time by yourself. It can be taking rest without guilt, enjoying connection and laughter, right? Spending time with others who help you feel safe and supported in a sense. Enjoyable activities and not doing a workout that's punishable or that you don't like, right? That's what pleasure really looks like in real life to me. And it's so important to remember that a constantly stressed body does not heal well.
And why is that? Why does stress impact how we heal?
So when we hear stress, a lot of times we think, oh my goodness, it's bad. But not all stress is bad, right? Chronic stress, right? Stress over long periods of time can be detrimental, right, to our system and our body. It causes shifts in hormones, elevates cortisol, right? Our cortisol levels. And then we start to see this domino effect. We see weight changes. We see disruptions in sleep. We start to see issues with our insulin regulation, insulin and glucose regulation, right? Inflammation. That's for chronic stress. Yeah. But for short periods of stress, it's important to have something that is able to help you rest and recover, which is going to be your pleasure, right? What you're choosing for joy.
I love that. In your work, what changes do you see when women do stop shrinking and start showing up for themselves in that way, really prioritizing their pleasure, prioritizing, their joy and what makes them happy, essentially?
Well, we start to see a lot of different shifts, right? When they show up differently. They have this glow about them, right? They have more energy. They've got more agency, some more clarity, right? That's what it comes with. And oftentimes they've let go of certain expectations, people pleasing, and they're no longer shrinking themselves, right? They're just they're fitting into, or really expanding into what fits.
Yeah. I love that. And like I said, expansion is my word for this year. And in every way, whether it be professionally, personally, doing this is an example of expansion of my business. And I love that you sort of see the alignment between all of these things, right? And that's one reason why I just am so thrilled to be able to work with you, because I do find that it's rare, I think, to have a physician who takes such a holistic and a whole person approach. Right? Not just have a good, because, I've been fortunate. I've had other physicians who have a great bedside manner. That's great. Right? I love that too. But also to have that sort of groundedness and rootedness in looking at the whole picture. Right? And when things are maybe a little bit uncertain, being able to, okay, let's ground and figure out, okay, what are the next steps? And I really appreciate that about your approach to medicine and your approach to care. And I would love to know, like, for you, what does a queen bee phase sort of look like to you? And what does that look like in health and life to you as a queen bee?
So as a queen bee, we are trusting ourselves, right? We're asking better questions. We're making decisions not from fear, but from information, because we are informed, right? We're not afraid to learn more, become informed about whatever it is we're concerned about. And again, ownership really starts when you start trusting yourself again. So it really starts with self-trust.
I love it. Yeah. I love it, love it, love it. Okay. Let's do a couple of rapid fire questions. Let's do 3 of them. Okay. So what's one question you wish more women would ask themselves or their doctor when they notice something that is small but persistent?
When they've noticed something small, but it is persistent. So I touched on it a little bit before, but I will say it again, is honestly just asking yourself, what has changed for me over the past few months? What has changed for me? What have I been ignoring, right? You want to touch on that. When you notice these changes or shifts, they're more important than really seeing or noticing just one single lab value, right? So change in itself over time, that's data, and really important data for you.
And what's one small, consistent habit that you've seen make a big difference in a woman's health over time?
Oh, okay. Consistency with the basics. That's it. All right. That with the basics. And when I say the basics, again, we're going back to NMS. Nutrition, right? Movement, sleep. Nutrition, movement, and sleep.
And out of those 3, a little extra question, out of those 3, which would you say you see is the most challenging for women in this demographic? Or maybe rank them. How about you rank them?
We'll rank them in terms of what's the most difficult.
Yes.
I'd say movement, nutrition, and then sleep.
Okay.
Movement, nutrition, and sleep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say movement, nutrition, and sleep, and movement sounds like it's easy to do, right? Mm-hmm. But, oftentimes it can be a challenge to find time to get steps in, right? Yeah. A lot of, as we get older, as we're aging, we're a little bit more sedentary, believe it or not, right? So trying to get these steps in, finding time to at least get outside and walk. And that's, again, if there's accessibility, and you have time to get out and walk, right, to move around. So that's a challenge itself. Sleep, right? Again, we see these disruptions in sleep, and during this time, we're busy. So, people are like, oh yeah.
Right? I've been having night sweats and all this other, yeah. So
correct. Huge challenge. So again, just back to those basics. NMS. Yeah. Nutrition, movement, sleep.
NMS, y'all. Nutrition, movement, and sleep. You can tackle those 3. You've pretty much conquered your world, I feel.
It is. And I don't want anyone to be discouraged, but it really is, it's rarely just one dramatic intervention, It's what we repeat. And it's really these small things that are done consistently beats big things that are done occasionally every time.
I love that. Okay, last question. What is one pleasure or wellness ritual that you personally love and recommend to women in 35, 45, 50 plus aged demographic?
So I love getting ready for basically my wind down routine. Okay. And I think everyone should have a wind down routine. It's really just getting your body prepped and ready, signaling to your body that it's time to shut it down. Brain, it's time to slow it down. Body. And we're about to get into rest and recovery mode. Okay. So I take my time and I find my skin serums or my skin creams. I lather that on. If we've got some red light therapy, I love to include a red light therapy mask. Mm-hmm. 10 minutes. I'm laying in bed. I may even read a page or 2 of a book. Mm-hmm. And by then my body has started to, you already feel the slowdown. Yes. And I'm ready for bed. And that makes me feel good. Yeah. It makes me feel grounded. And I know I'm doing my body, I'm helping it out for what it's done for me during that day.
I love that. I'm going to steal some of that too, because I think too much of my wind down routine includes things that don't wind me down, right? Like look at my phone one last time, right? So I love that. I'm going to steal some of those tips for sure.
Okay.
I appreciate you so much, Dr. Collman. You have no idea. And I think it's been great to have you on for the first, because again, like y'all, she's literally part of my personal board of health directors. And so thank you for this conversation, for sharing your tips and your voice to help women feel good inside and out, professionally and here in this setting, you know. And for everyone listening, this is what Bloom, Build, and Birth is about, right? It's about awareness and being intentional about how you structure your life and how you claim sovereignty. So Dr. Collman, tell us, how can we find you if we want to work with you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yes, thank you. The best way to reach out to me or to contact me, to, potentially work with me, you can find me at Dr. Kristamarie, that's DrKristamarie, on all social media platforms, even my website, drkristamarie.com, and check me out there.
Yeah, and I'll be
very active.
Every link to everything, all your platforms, and all of the places where we publish this conversation.
Perfect.
And y'all, if this resonated with you at all, please subscribe, leave a review, tell us what you want to talk about, tell us what you want to hear about, what you want to learn about from experts like Dr. Collman. And until next time, Sissy, keep blooming, keep building and birthing the life you desire and the life you deserve. Y'all have a good night.